Hey everyone, my name is Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new, I am here to give you episode 2 of my new series, Read and Discover. And today we're going to read and discover all about bees and honey. So first, I should confess, I actually don't like honey. Hear me out. Okay, do you remember Winnie the Pooh? And Pooh Bear has his whole house full of this ooey gooey yellow liquid honey. I swear on my life, thought honey was just some type of melted cheese, like gooey queso. So I was obsessed with the idea of honey. I wanted it. I thought it was gonna be awesome. So Pooh Bear being obsessed with honey, I was obsessed with Pooh Bear. My dad, when I was a little girl, put honey on like toast one day for breakfast, and I bit into it so excited and was so confused when I found out it was basically sugar. Which honey is one of the most basic, simple sugar glucose foods that we can eat as humans, very high in energy, very good for you. But as a child, I was pissed as hell and swore off honey. So to this day, I don't naturally think of honey as a sweetener. As I've gotten older and I'm trying to get away from refined white sugars and cane sugars, I do go back to honey from time to time. I've actually received honey as gifts before. I have received a jar of honey actually from Olive, that's Pittsburgh honey. Olive is from a book, Olive. We recently did a book exchange, which I'll link below and in the cards. She sent me honey from Pittsburgh. And as I've been reading about these two books, which I swear I'll tell you the titles of, I realized that honey can have different flavors regionally based on the terroir of the area. So if you think of terroir, you might have heard the term terroir from wine culture. Different grapes, different soil, different mineral compounds impact the flavor of the final product of wine. Apparently, honey has the same exact experience. So first, before we taste, I should mention the two books. I read Buzz by Thor Hansen, and ironically, for that book exchange that Olive and I participated in with each other, I sent Olive Honey and Venom, Confessions of an Urban Beekeeper by Andrew Cote. First off, both of these books are fantastic and are actually both narrated by the authors. I've listened to both on Scribed, actually, so for, if you're looking for these books. Thor Hansen is a conservation biologist. He's written other books such as Seeds, and I think his others are called Feathers and The Impenetrable Forest and The Triumph of Seeds. So I first learned about Andrew Cote through another book called Eating Brooklyn, or I Love Brooklyn. I'll put the picture here. And I remember learning about him because in that story, there's an investigation going on about bees that are producing red honey. And it was startling and bizarre, and the bees themselves were turning red. And Andrew Cote comes in as an urban beekeeper, and he's part of the investigative work to find out why. And it turns out that the bees were eating the sugar excess from a maraschino cherry plant. So the maraschino cherry plant was, I guess, throwing out waste, or the bees had, I read the article, I read the chapter. The factory had improper procedures in place for disposing of waste surrounding the creation of the maraschino cherries and the juice that they sit in. So the bees, it was an easy sugar source to go after. So instead of going after flowers to pollinate, they went for the sugar source, which naturally turned their bees red because they carry the pollen and the nutrition with them. On top of it, it turned their honey red. So that was my first introduction to Andrew Cote in that earlier book. So picking up this book, I originally sent it to Olive because I knew she wanted nature writing. I know Olive reads all kind of nonfiction, but I learned about Olive and her channel through her love of nature writing. So I thought that this would be fun, and it's a year in the life, and this book is a year in the life of New York City's premier beekeeper, who charmingly chronicles his adventures and the quirky personalities he encounters while spreading his infinite knowledge of and the passion of the remarkable honeybee. This was a lot of fun, going chapter by chapter, season by season, and seeing what the struggles are and weird things he encounters. There's stories about how he and his friends are like a ragtag team brought in to remove honeybee hives in the strangest of places. He also talks about doing an exhibit for the Museum of Modern Arts that's a live bee installation. It's a really fun story. And if you are someone who grew up in New York or New Jersey or that New England area, a lot of this is just another reminder of how cool New York can be. I think what he learns is amazing. And then the fact that Andrew Cote, who knows he knows a lot of things, continues to learn and spread the knowledge is fascinating. At one point, he is abroad in Africa and is trying to teach the native people there about beekeeping and honeykeeping, because it can make them a lot of money. And there's just a scene where Andrew and his team tell them to stay back, let them go check out a hive and make sure it's safe. And none of the team listens to them, and he turns around, there's just like the whole village has followed him, and one of them disturbs the hive, and suddenly it's comedic to read about, but probably horrifying to experience, that a swarm of bees is just running after these people without their bee nets on, and they're all running for their lives, and they're throwing their nets on top of their bee nets, like their suits, over the heads of little children so they can be safe. But you could imagine how comedic that would be, except probably not comedic to experience. So this is a year of one man's life, but he's one of the top of the beekeeping world. On the flip side of that, I read Buzz by Thor Hansen, and this is much more the history of bees, where they came from, and the book spans about 125 million years of history, and encompassing well-known honeybees and bumbles, as well as lesser-known diggers, miners, leafcutters, and masons. First off, I didn't even know that those latter types of bees existed till I picked up this book. He shows readers how central bees are to our harvests, our mythologies, and our very existence. How they're given us sweetness and light, the beauty of flowers, and as much of a third of the foodstuff we eat. And alarmingly, he shows us why we're at risk of them disappearing. So this is definitely more of a strict nature writing, conservation kind of effort. I learned a lot. I didn't know that there were so many different types of bees that existed. I honestly wish I had read Buzz first before I had read Honey and Venom, because I think this is the foundational work if you want to understand bees and how they exist and how they survive in our communities, and this is much more the day in the life of an urban beekeeper. The two together are a fantastic pair, because this to me is bees around the world, how they've evolved, and this is how in urban areas beekeeping is still alive and well. And I actually bought a bee hotel for my own backyard to help bees have a place to stop in my backyard and hopefully to pollinate my own flowers, which has been a marvelous success for me this summer. I have tons of cucumbers, my tomatoes have almost ripened, peppers, and so on. So it has been a lot of fun. So now for the discover part of this video, I really wanted to understand if it's true. Do bees produce honey with different terroir? So I have 4 different bottles of honey. They're in warm water because pure honey will crystallize and solidify. So first to start, I have raw and unfiltered honey from local hive, and it's interesting. This bottle, actually, I'll show it to the camera, don't worry. It actually says that the floral notes here are alfalfa, basswood, clover, and sunflower. It's grown in the Midwest, and it actually has a map on the back to show where these bees are from. So this is the front of the bottle. And on the back, I think you can kind of see it. It's a little obvious, it's probably not the most clear thing. Focus. There's a map that shows where the bees are in the Midwest. Oh God, maybe it's still solidified. All right, well, maybe I'll just have to turn off the top. So this is what I mean. It's solid. It has crystallized in some capacity. So maybe I can scrape some off the top. Okay, there, that worked. So first off, it definitely tastes like honey. It's not melted cheese, much to my chagrin. Putting aside the texture note, because it is crystallized, I don't actually know if I taste alfalfa, basswood, or clover. Maybe that means I just don't have a refined palate. But it's certainly pleasant. So that's the first one. So that's some Midwest honey. Now I'm going to try Pittsburgh honey. This is the one that Olive in a book Olive sent to me. Pure and local, a fine apiary product. I don't know too much more about the farm. I probably could have pre-researched that for you, but I chose not to. But this is Pittsburgh honey. This one does not note any flavor notes, but it is a family product. So this one is not solidified. This is still liquid, semi-liquid. So, see, like it just pours out versus the other one is completely hardened. Not completely hardened. They say if you just put some in warm water, which is what I was trying to do while talking to you guys, then it would come back together. It does note that it is the fall bloom, so I'm guessing whatever fall, if they're harvesting in the fall, then I would assume that that means that the honey was produced August, September, so then you could think about, well, what flowers are blooming and go from there. I don't know if it's just me, but I think I actually taste a difference. Also, the texture is much better, quite obviously. This honey is a little bit lighter. It's smoother texture-wise, obviously. It's sweet and then it disappears right away versus the other honey tended to linger a little bit more. That's actually interesting. I don't know quite exactly what I'm doing, to be honest, but it is fun to experiment. The third honey is seashell honey straight from the hive, raw, pure fall honey. So this is from the farmer's market right down the street from me, actually. And on the top it says, how do you know it's pure honey if you don't know the beekeeper? So this, you literally can walk right up to their stall every Saturday, Tuesday, or Thursday morning, and they are there with jars of honey. Now, the first thing I can tell you while looking at it is, so I try not to spill it, this is a very dark honey. Like, look how dark this is compared to this honey. And I don't know if it's partially the jar, but that's pretty interesting right off the bat that they're different colors. So this one is semi-solid at this point, despite, maybe I should have submerged them entirely in water because they've been sitting in water. But maybe it's the bottom's re-solidified and not the top of it because it's such a tall jar. So I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's, oh crap. Well, I didn't get it on the books. Oh, I got it on the floor. Crap. I'll go clean that in a minute. You can see it's darker in color is what the point I was trying to make. Oh, that's a very different taste. But it's so weird. I wish I knew how to explain this better. I don't have the right words. It's almost earthier. Like, it's not so sickly sweet, but it almost has like deeper notes to it. Like, I feel the sweetness spread across my tongue. It's so weird. I wish I knew how to tell you guys what this meant. Ah! I've also mentioned I don't like honey and I wish it was melted cheese. All right, let me go get the honey off the ground. Hold on. That's 3 very different honeys. So as a recap, I've tried a honey from the Midwest, a honey from Pittsburgh, and honey from Western New York, upstate New York, Buffalo, New York, where I am. The final one I actually bought at a vineyard last weekend. The vineyard has grapes, they make hard ciders, and they have apple. So this is Laura's raw honey with hints of clover. Don't focus on, yeah, hopefully I focused on that. It says Laura's raw honey is unfiltered, unheated, raw, unprocessed honey. Our honey is produced from local hives in upstate New York. We gather honey and bottle it with love. All natural honey will solidify. To reliquify, place the jar in warm water, which is what I tried to do. So their headquarters is based out of Rochester. And I don't think it's gonna show up on the camera light, but let me see. It actually is embossed. I don't know if you guys can see it. There, if I like shine the light, it says 1 pound of pure honey. Very cool bottling. I love embossing. I think it's a lost technique. So this is glass jarred and with a cork, which is different than any of the other honeys as I'm trying to get this off. I'll probably keep the bottle at least. So this is hard as a rock. And my spoon doesn't fit. Hold on. Okay, let's see if the smaller spoon can. Okay, the smaller spoon got in. It's definitely crystallized. So, you know, benefit of the doubt on texture. So let's see, am I going to taste clover? Well, I'd say out of all of them, this one has the most earthy, grass-like taste. I mean, like clover is a green product. That's what I mean by like grassy. I don't want to say earthy because I think earthy connotates something more like mushroomy and umami. This definitely has floral notes to it that I actually taste. So all, honey, true to what they say, does have a level of terroir. It is truly, at least out of these 4 bottles, they all taste uniquely different. I realized that if I set this up differently for you, you'd be able to see the consistency and how different the colors are across honey. I've been running this local Midwest honey underwater, hot water, for like 10 minutes now, and it still hasn't re-solidified, but look at how different this honey is from Buffalo, New York. This dark amber color. And this is the one that Olive sent me from a book, Olive. A little bit less viscous and lighter in color. Now the final honey is this one, Laura's Raw Honey. This one sat under the water even longer, and it still hasn't really desolidified and become liquid again. It's getting there, but I feel like it's going to take me forever. So I thought it would help if I first, let me zoom out. These show you guys kind of like the different consistencies and colors of this honey. So as you can see, this is very light in color. Like, look how it's almost pale. Versus this one up close. Look how dark it is. And then you have the Pittsburgh one. Very clear golden color. Light gold color. This is not this is what I think of when I think of honey, this dark color. But maybe that's more the color of caramel, and this is actually the color of honey. And then these two are slightly similar in color. I would actually say this is the lightest, second lightest, third darkest. And even as I spoon them together, you can kind of see the different consistency even next to these 2 honeys side by side. So this top one is the one from Buffalo, New York. The bottom one, come on, focus, there we go, is the one from Pittsburgh. Pretty interesting, right? But they all have the same single ingredient on the back of pack, which is honey. It's really important to pay attention to your labels when you're in a larger grocery store, because you can have people who try and they pass off honey by adding in corn syrup. So be careful. Try and support your local farmer or your local beekeeper, obviously. That's what we always want to do. We always want to support our little farmers because they're part of what's keeping beekeeping alive. I think one of the most interesting things in the book, across both books, is actually the desperate need we as human beings, we need bees because bees pollinate our food. And for example, the almond business is so big in California that the farmers actually have to pay beekeepers whose sole job is to actually move hives throughout the country, throughout the different seasons, to pollinate our crops. Because otherwise we would have to hand pollinate our apples, our grapes, our almonds, and that's just it's not sustainable. Some people can do it by hand, but by and large, it's a model where colony collapse disorder really is showing you what we could miss out on. And colony collapse disorder is this phenomenon right now where honeybees, worker bees go out to collect pollen and then they never come back. And we're still trying to figure out why that happened. So what you can do in your backyard or your balcony is plant flowers or put a bee hotel. A bee hotel is not a hive. A bee hotel is, the more we destroy naturally occurring flowering plants or even clover, the farther the bee is traveling to find pollen, and it can get tired or confused. A bee hotel is a place for it to stop and gather its energy and then resume. Anyway, this is my second episode of Read and Discover, focusing all on the terroir of honey. Again, the 2 books that I read, Buzz by Thor Hansen, The Nature and Necessity of Bees, and Andrew Cote's memoir/book, Honey and Venom, Confessions of an Urban Beekeeper. I'll have links to both of these below in the description box. These are affiliate links, and your purchase does help support me in this channel, and also 10% of your purchase will go back to independent bookstores as part of bookshop.org's model. If you're looking for other ways to support my channel, first off, just hit like and subscribe. I'd love to know if you like this new series I'm working on. And you can follow me on Instagram at Bookmarks Breadsticks. Links to my Patreon and my other reading lists are also available, and I post new content every Tuesday and Saturday, and sometimes bonus content on Fridays. I hope you're well. Wear a mask. Make sure you participate in the Book Buffet Readathon throughout the month of August. I hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.